penultimate match of the night could hardly be called a match for various different reasons. Blue Demon Jr. and Tejano, both, of course, AAA alumni. The storyline for this has been going on ever since the beginning of Lucha Underground. Blue Demon Jr. is part of a legendary family in Mexican Lucha Libre. He is the scion of a legend. He is basically, his family was the original Rudo, the original bad guy in Lucha Libre in Mexico. And he's had off and on feuding with other notable families in Lucha Libre in Mexico, like, for instance, Chavo Guerrero Jr. Because basically being the face of the honor of Mexico is kind of a big deal in Lucha Libre. Well, unfortunately, at one point, Chavo Guerrero got injured from an ill-fated encounter with Mil Muertes. So he and Blue Demon Jr. could not get to wrestle each other. So Chavo put a little bug in his ear, saying, "You know, I overheard that guy Tejano. He thinks that you're overrated. He thinks that you're a poser. He thinks that you're just a wannabe who lives in Florida and that you don't represent Mexico in any way, shape, or form." And this, unsurprisingly, got Blue Demon Jr. pissed all the hell. So he started attacking Tejano. And it ultimately came to this culmination here at Ultima Lucha. But Blue Demon Jr. comes out for his match against Tejano, alongside a couple of thugs that are hired by Dario Cueto, known as the Crew. And the Crew looking really, really nice, sharp suits, bright blue ties. I mean, think like J&J Security if they actually looked imposing. And they handed Melissa Santos an envelope with a little note inside. That note said that, due to Blue Demon Jr.'s legendary status, Dario Cueto has allowed this match to become a no disqualification match. Which, of course, basically is code for, Tejano, you're fucked. So, of course, Blue Demon Jr. and the Crews just start beating him down, doing nothing much. But then a wild Chavo Guerrero appears, with a cheer, looking as if he's going to smack Blue Demon Jr. a good one, until he spins around and smashes Tejano. Never trust a Guerrero.
I think that was kind of going to be a given there.
Especially considering that that's kind of been Chavo Guerrero's hat the entire season. He gets somebody's trust, and then he will break it. So, yeah. Blue Demon Jr. basically got the win on this for no other reason than he stacked the deck in his favor. Not really the best match of the night. In fact, probably the worst match of the entire Ultima Lucha. But finally we come to the real reason we're here. The epic confrontation for the Lucha Underground Championship. Mil Muertes against Prince Puma, the champion. And, by the way, Prince Puma, also known as Ricochet in a former life, African-American wrestler, being billed as from Boyle Heights because the storyline for the entire season was the fact that Conan had found him as a street punk in Boyle Heights and took him in and taught him the ways of Lucha Libre because he recognized something in Prince Puma very unique. He recognized that he had the spirit in him of his ancestors, his Aztec ancestors, from a clan of the Aztecs whose spirit animal was the jaguar. Supposedly, the fiercest of all the Aztec clans. And under Conan's guidance, he ultimately won the Lucha Underground Championship. Along the way, he's had feuds with several people, including the aforementioned Hernandez, Johnny Mundo, Cage. I mentioned earlier he had destroyed the original title belt. Pissed Dario Cueto off to no end. But ultimately, this was going to be his greatest challenge. Because, A, Mil Muertes faced off against Phoenix earlier in the series in a match called Grave Consequences, which is basically a casket match, except better. He lost that match, but Katrina brought him back, ostensibly stronger than he was before. So now he is basically the strongest force in all of Lucha Underground. To make matters
I'm still trying to figure this out because I thought Katrina turned on Mil Muertes. I'm not quite sure what the hell happened there. She suddenly just turned right back.
See, the thing is that it was all a part of her plan to appear as if she had turned on Mil Muertes because she wanted to bring him back even stronger before, because she had found out about the lovely little monster called Matanza. All a part of the plan. More or less.
Which, by the way, Matanza versus Mil Muertes, book it for season 2.
That's going to be insane because on the one hand, you have someone who is undeniably a monster in Mil Muertes, and then you have Matanza, who has actually, apparently, possibly eaten someone. Long story. Anyway.
Oh yeah, all hell's going to break loose in that one.
Anyway, the Ultimate Championship match. To make matters worse for Prince Puma, Conan had been beaten down a couple of weeks prior by the Disciples of Death at Katrina's direction and stuffed into a casket. So now he's all on his own. But the match before, he was going to speak for himself, only to be interrupted by Katrina and Mil Muertes, at which point Prince Puma laid down his Lucha Underground Championship in the ring and basically dared Mil Muertes to come and get it. A brawl ensued, which Prince Puma actually got the upper hand on. And this match, probably the longest match of the night, by far. And probably also the longest match overall. Definitely lived up to the hype. Mil Muertes, of course, looked just absolutely killer. And Prince Puma definitely showed that he was able to hold his own against Mil Muertes. He showed why he has been the champion all season. There were a lot of people who had concerns that he might not look so strong because of Conan's involvement in virtually every other defense that he had had beforehand. And this was the first time that he was standing on his own. But he came out of it looking absolutely fantastic. And there was just, for the longest time, there just looked like there was no end to the match. They just kept going back and forth. At one point, Prince Puma actually picked up Katrina and pulled some Jackie Chan type shit by using her as a weapon against Mil Muertes. That was awesome. Funny as hell, too. And they took, I think, at least one of each other's finishers right in the middle of the ring and still kicked out. In fact, they took multiple special moves from each other back and forth, including the flatliner and the 630 senton, and both of them kicked out. Which doesn't happen all that often in Lucha Underground, that people do kick out of finishers, unlike, WWE, where you see it pretty much at every pay-per-view, multiple times. But it was a really, really big deal, because it showed the kind of fighting spirit that Prince Puma has, and it shows the fact that Mil Muertes, whose name literally means 1,000 deaths, was going to have to be knocked down probably 1,000 times before you would be able to stop him. Ultimately, though, the match ended when Prince Puma was up on the top rope getting ready to do yet another 630 senton, only for Mil Muertes to pop up, dash up, and hit a super flatliner from the top rope. Smacked right onto the Aztec symbol on the center of the ring. 1, 2, 3, cue the lick of death. Your winner and new Lucha Underground champion from beyond the grave, Mil Muertes. The age of death has begun. But that's not the end of the show. Because afterward, there were a series of vignettes. The first of which being Black Lotus and Dario Cueto getting into a truck with a horse trailer, driving off with a masked individual inside the horse trailer, ostensibly Matanza. Which, by the way, if I remember correctly, Matanza actually means massacre. Which, considering according to Dario Cueto, Matanza was basically treated like a dog-fighting pit bull to the point where he became a monster by his father's own design. Pretty fitting name there.
I believe it actually means murderer.
Murderer or massacre, something akin to that. The next vignette is Phoenix with his newly won Gift of the Gods championship, hopping into a Firebird, because of course, and driving off with a hatted individual in a pickup truck following behind him, ostensibly King Cuerno. Then we have Team Dysfunction hopping onto motorcycles, Angelico onto a sport bike, and Evilise and Son of Havoc onto a motorcycle, with Son of Havoc sitting in the back, because of course, easy to see who wears the pants in that relationship, driving off, dedicated to getting back what they lost from the Disciples of Death. Pentagon Jr. asking Vampiro where they're going to go while they prepare for the return of Lucha Underground, to which Vampiro simply replies, someplace dark. And of course, we also have Dario Cueto. As the lights start going out one by one in the old temple, framed in a red light, giving a sinister smile, before the title card comes up to say, to be continued. That was Season 1 of Lucha Underground. Let us pray that a Season 2 comes. Final thoughts on Ultima Lucha in its entirety. Like I said, there were some snoozers here and there, and some things I just really didn't care for all that much, like the Sierra Romero match. That's just my sensibilities being what they are. And while Blue Demon Jr.'s match really wasn't a match, it definitely established what it had to establish. It definitely did what it had to do, which is set up, the continuation of the storyline next season to see where the alliance between Blue Demon Jr. and Chavo Guerrero goes. Spoiler warning, Chavo's probably going to betray Blue Demon at some point. He's a Guerrero. It's what he does. And of course, we'll have Prince Puma having to fight to come back to try and reclaim what was lost for him. We've got the same of Team Dysfunction. Oh, I forgot one vignette. Marty the Moth Martinez has kidnapped Sexy Star, has her tied up, and is looking at her with crazy eyes saying, "You think you're not taking me seriously? Well, just wait. You'll see when my sister shows up."
I'm assuming his sister has probably larger than him. They probably bought China or something. I don't.
Probably a bigger threat, yeah. I don't know if China, but when we find out who his sister is, it's not going to be a pretty scene. I guarantee you that, because
Maybe they hired that. Maybe they hired that Mother Russia person, the person who played Mother Russia in Kick-Ass 2.
at any rate, oh, that's going to be creepy and fun to watch. Like David alluded to, there are some storylines that we're both interested in seeing in Season 2. He wants to see Matanza versus Mil Muertes, and I'll second that. But really, I'm more interested in seeing the three-way dynamic that is going to come up with Phoenix, Mil Muertes, and King Cuerno. Because, I mean, we've already seen it teased that King Cuerno is going to come for Phoenix and his Gift of the Gods Championship. But during that, you will also have the subplot of Phoenix battling within himself, trying to decide when he is ready to face Mil Muertes one more time, this time with the championship on the line. Because, like I said earlier, Phoenix and Mil Muertes do have that history together, but now it adds a different dimension. Because Mil Muertes is far stronger than he was the last time. The last meeting that they had was actually a death match that Phoenix got destroyed in. He was actually the one who got chokeslammed through Dario Cueto's office and wasn't seen for quite some time after that.
Well, part of the reason why I was thinking that it was going to be Matanza versus Mil Muertes, going back to that first idea, is because they hinted it in Season 1. Katrina at least did. But I think in this one, who would be the face? Mil Muertes? Would you have to turn Mil Muertes into the Disciples of Death? Because the crew is obviously going to be involved in this too. They're kind of dark. They're kind of buddy-buddy with Dario Cueto, so they'll probably go for the trios titles against the Disciples of Death if this happens.
Well, Dario Cueto is the uber heel. Right. I mean, he is the guy in charge, and sometimes he does do stuff that the believers do like. You know, like put some people, like heels that have pissed him off in really bad situations, like the Believers Backlash match. But ultimately, he is the big bad of the show. He is the top villain. And Mil Muertes, really, the only reason why he's been the heel is because he has been put up against bigger fish, bigger faces, like Phoenix, like Prince Puma. More than anything, though, Mil Muertes is a monster.
Right.
I mean, he doesn't do really much of the traditionally heelish things. He and his mouthpiece Katrina don't insult the believers. You know, really all Mil Muertes does is wreck shit.
So you think that Mil Muertes and the Disciples of Death would end up turning face?
I think Mil Muertes is kind of in a position where he's really just a monster tweener. And if he was put up against Dario Cueto directly, the fans would get behind him just because they want to knock the smug snake down a peg.
That'd be a hell of a way to knock him down.
It would really be a case of dark versus evil. Oh, one other vignette that I missed. Drago gave some friendly parting words to Aerostar before both of them disappeared. Both Drago flying off as a dragon with this great big burst of fire, and Aerostar basically rocketing up into space, because apparently he is from space, or supposed to be.
Love how that's so believable, by the way.
Well, they've had battles back and forth just by Dario Cueto being a dick, but ultimately they are friends. And I have to wonder if they're not going to try and find someone to get together a trios team in the end. I know they're part of a trios team in AAA. In fact, with El Hijo del Fantasma. But he's King Cuerno, so unless they have someone else wear the El Hijo del Fantasma mask, well, that's kind of going to be a problem. Ooh, I know who could be their trio's member.
Oh.
One of these two people. Either Bengala, who has been shown to actually be a pretty good threat on occasion, or, just for the sake of hilarity, the exotico known as Pimpinela Escarlata.
Yeah, he hasn't been around very often.
He was also in the Atomicos tag match at Triple Mania, but I'm talking about Triple Mania way too much for a show that I couldn't even watch all the way through. And of course, like I said earlier, watching Pentagon Jr. now being managed by Vampiro is going to be interesting. The addition of Molina to the Patron Mundo feud is going to be interesting too, because it makes you wonder what Patron is going to do to create an equalizing force there. Maybe he'll get involved and try and rescue Sexy Star so that he can have an ally. I don't know. If that's the case, that would be the first ally El Patron's ever had in Lucha Underground. Otherwise, he has stood alone because, well, he's a smug, egotistical asshole.
God, El Patron versus Marty the Moth. Body bag!
Smug versus crazy. But yeah, we are really looking forward to Season 2, and honestly, I believe that Season 2 is going to happen. Like I said, it's really just a matter of getting money knocked out.
Right.
Oh, by the way, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the second part of Ultima Lucha was dedicated to the original Rudo, Roddy Piper, which... It's the second time in Lucha Underground that they've actually devoted an episode to Fallen Wrestler, including one where they actually did a shot little tribute to El Hijo del Perro Agallo Jr. after he died, which apparently had a really touching scene with a touching speech by Conan. That actually brings up another question. In Season 2, if they bring in some more new faces, who would you like to see in Lucha Underground?
I would not know, honestly.
Like just pick someone from like Ring of Honor or TNA.
I would go to Austin Aries.
Because Hernandez was with TNA. Austin Aries?
You see,
I'm going to pick two names.
You see, the reason why I say that is because Austin Aries seems to be the right fit to be a regular-sized wrestler in Lucha Underground. Remember, Mil Muertes may be carded as a monster, but his build, height, and weight is only 6'1", 250. Which, in WWE terms, Mil Muertes would be just slightly larger than a cruiserweight.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference in size between Lucha Libre and the WWE style, but that's mostly because Vince McMahon can't get a stiffy unless you're at least 6'6". Take that as you will. I'm going to name two names, and this is entirely fantasy booking here, and the money involved may not make this all that feasible. Name number one, AJ Styles. Tell me that his style would not fit in with Lucha Underground. Considering how critical a part he was of TNA's X division for the longest time. And yeah, he can slow it down and wrestle a little more, technical. But he's definitely more of a high-speed, high-risk kind of a guy. So I think his style would definitely fit in Lucha Underground. The second completely fantasy booking name, because let's face it, it's been a long time since we've seen him on TV in the upper parts of North America in quite some time, Rey Mysterio Jr. And I'm not just saying that because that would be like a fourth or fifth WWE cast-off that would be part of the Lucha
Right.
Underground. I honestly think that he's in the twilight of his career right now. He's creeping up on his 40s. What better way would it be for him to end his career in much the same way that his career in North America really got started? You know, he was first introduced to the United States and Canada in ECW. And Lucha Underground is basically kind of a neo-ECW crossed with telenovelas. So wouldn't that be a nice little bookend for his career?
This was an update from, I believe, in Wednesday. That Lucha Underground Season 2, it is definitely now looking like it's going to happen, but they're not going to do it in the fall. It's looking like that they're going to do it in January of 2016.
Well, to be fair, Season 1 of Lucha Underground really got started on their first show of the new year, because that was when they introduced the Underground Championship.
True.
Yeah, that was when they had Aztec Warfare. So that was, there were some storyline things before then that basically established what Lucha Underground was going to be, including the on-again, off-again feuding and friendship between Prince Puma and Johnny Mundo.
They're also changing the location of where Lucha Underground is going to be placed. It's currently in Boyle Heights in LA, but LA is very expensive, so they're looking into a studio somewhere in Texas.
Yeah, well, they kind of opened that door anyway with the final vignettes. Anyway, with the whole, this location's not safe anymore, we have to book it the hell out of town. So, and staying in Boyle Heights in a different warehouse would be not the most optimal situation.
No, it wouldn't.
Storyline-wise. And, of course, meta-wise, money-wise, it's definitely not an optimal situation, just because, you basically are shooting a telenovela with wrestling. It's got a pretty high budget. Maybe the special effects aren't quite, WWE production level, with the lightning effects and tons and tons of pyro, but I forget the name of the band. I just hope that the band that they had to play in the wrestlers goes with them.
Right.
Because that was a fantastic band. And of course, getting to see Melissa Santos in the ring announcing the following lucha and varying her voice depending on who's involved, really selling who's involved as being either a good guy or a bad guy. That's going to be fantastic. I have to say, Melissa Santos is probably the best in-ring announcer that we've got so far. Certainly in any promotion that airs in the US and Canada. Of course, look at the competition she's got to go up against. I mean, there's Jeremy Borash in TNA, and then there's JoJo in the WWE. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jeremy. Thank you all for listening to episode 25. Sorry for all the issues that we've had with it. This is actually going to be the end of episode 25. We're not going to have a sports section like we normally would, mostly because over the course of the week, I fell ill. In fact, you can probably hear a rougher quality to my voice right now. Been a little bit of a frog, caught something probably at work, either that or allergies, because there have been some rapid weather shifts going on here over the last week, and I tend to be very sensitive to those weather shifts. So Hope you've enjoyed the Ultima Lucha review. Hope you enjoyed the little review of Rocket League. Which, by the way, David and I actually did a playthrough of Rocket League over on his channel, Ace of Hearts Gaming. So hop over there, watch those. You can barely hear me, admittedly, but I am still in there. And it was really fun, despite the fact that I got my ass kicked every single match. Next week's episode is going to be very, very interesting, because it will be pretty much entirely wrestling. With it being SummerSlam, NXT TakeOver, and yes, I am still going to try and find some time to watch SummerSlam 93 and take notes on that for the OAPF. We will also have one of my friends, Lady Jess, on the show as well. So after that, we are more than likely going to put casual mode on an indefinite hiatus until I get a little more normalized in my new routine. Right now, my new routine is just all kinds of crazy, because, among other things, I'm having to drive an hour and back to go to work, and that hour back has been at midnight, so I've been coming back bushed and spending most of the morning just trying to wake up before I have to run off to work after lunch. So, I appreciate y'all understanding. I'm sorry for all the problems that we've had with this episode. Episode 26, like I said, will be the last one for a while. We are not necessarily closing down shop just yet. I just want to get normalized into my routine so I'll know what my recording times are going to be and how I'll be able to do the show then. So, until next time, if you like us, subscribe to us here, youtube.com/c/casual mode podcast. Also, follow Ace of Hearts Gaming on YouTube. David is at Zero Sage Harpuya on Twitter and at A of Hearts Gaming. I am at Shadowbird712. And until next time, this has been Casual Mode. Later, y'all.